Okay, so moving into the recruitment side. I mentioned about Peter Bassich with his group and how his first franchisee was an employee initially, and then he went on and sold to a franchisee. So that's part of that evolution that he used to kick his recruitment along. And Greg, his franchisee in Melville in Perth, was his best salesman. So what we would do, we would have a seminar. People would say, yes, I'm interested in Order Masters. We'd say, fine, we'll meet you at Melville at 3 o'clock on Thursday, tee Greg up, we'd go down there, and he would run a tour. We'd just go in the background, go and have a coffee, and he'd take them around. This is what I do, this is the workshop, this is how we handle a customer, here's the car, here's where we have all the spanners hung up nicely, and blah, 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 blah. This is what works really well. I was doing this. So the typical story is saying, I was an employee, I've been frustrated because I haven't had my own business. This was an opportunity. I took it and I've taken it, and the business is growing and I'm loving it, and so is my wife, because now we can afford to go to Fiji on holiday. And the people that are talking to him are saying, well, I can see this is what this fellow's done. Is it something I could do? And then he'd say, have you got any questions? And there I might have my ear sort of just listening to what the questions were. And after that, and he's finished, we'd say, okay, would you like more information? And people say, yeah, definitely. So you say, okay, obviously the information we're going to share with you, we don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry learning. Greg doesn't want his competitors up the road knowing it. So it's only fair we protect their interest. You'd probably feel the same. They said, yeah. So therefore we've got this little non-disclosure agreement. Just endorse that, give it back to me. I like the term non-disclosure. Sometimes you find confidentiality maybe intimidates people. And the little tip is endorse it, not sign. Because we all say sign, you compensate with signing your life away. So those are just little things. But that's what we do. They get an information pack, go through the process. So there you go. All right, so it's important you appreciate, can't emphasise it too many times, you've got to make sure you do select the right people. It's very tempting, particularly when you start, maybe cash flow's tight. It'd be great to open up somebody to come here. They've got enough funding to do it. They're really enthusiastic. But if they're not the right sort of people, or it's a territory in Broome or Cairns and it's going to stretch your resources, you're better off to do it. So we spoke about strategic growth rather than reactive growth. So it's important to plan that. However, our franchisor in New Zealand, he said, I'd like to go to North America. So he actually took the franchise for Canada. So he sold New Zealand for expense reduction analysts, moved to Canada. That was so easy that it just happened. So sometimes you get an opportunity pops up out of the woodwork. So in many respects, you've got to keep coming back to the system because you're entrepreneurial, you're happy to change things and do stuff, and you're reactive perhaps by nature. You can be your worst franchisee because you don't follow the system. So you've got to make sure you respect those rules, because if they look at it and see that you're breaking the rules, are they going to respect them? No. So you've got to make sure you address that. Some of the things about recruitment, Griffith University here have become very proactive in the franchise sector. They do a number of courses and training programs and so forth. Some of them I think are very academic, and I'm not sure whether necessarily of benefit, but there is information that they send. So I'd certainly recommend that you get on their newsletter list, because they have some interesting stats they produce every now and again. And there's some good information that you can quote to prospective franchisees and even your team and so on in outlining it. So they did a survey of franchisors. This was the average they found for recruiting franchisees, what it costs them. So we're saying here, average cost of recruiting a franchisee was about $20,000. Remember, these are going from probably service businesses, the home cleaners, to McDonald's and large, $1 million businesses. So the figures vary. That about 30% of the people used a franchise or a business broker to recruit their franchisees. All right? We'll run to that in a bit more detail in a moment. They found with their growth that multi-unit franchising has definitely made a difference. So I mentioned about with Subway and people like Paul Works, how once somebody's really understands, it's easy for them to grow the business and take over another outlet if they're suited. The Peter principle, have you heard of it? Is a glass ceiling. And they always promote people beyond their capabilities. That's where I referred to the sales manager. The top salesman being sort of promoted to sales manager. He hasn't got the skills. You've gone beyond his ideal level of competence. So you'll be very careful you don't push people beyond it. Often they'll take it because they aspire to it, but they haven't got the skills. So before you put someone up to a different level, go through that disc profile aspect again and just have a close look. It at least makes you stop and check. The average number of inquiries you can see there is about 40 per year per franchisee, and they had about a 10% sort of success rate when it came to the number of people they spoke to. That's going to vary according to how efficient they are with their processing and so forth. So it's just an indication of what might be out there. So the key three areas of recruitment are marketing, what I believe your recruitment package, so the material that you give to you, the collateral you give to your prospective franchisee for them to have a look at. There's going to be really the information they're going to read and share with their partner and so on. And then you're looking at your recruitment process, the way you lead people down through there to make sure they're getting a level of understanding and knowledge which is necessary. So we're coming back to that schematic again. You know, we spoke earlier about when you look at your product, your service you're providing at the moment, you're doing your marketing strategy, using your branding plan, your identity and so on, your logos and your advertising skills. You do exactly the same when it comes to recruitment. It's a parallel process, but with different levels of application. So you're going to do your marketing strategy for your franchisee recruitment, work out where you're going to be doing it and so on, use all that branding, and then you got out there and get your plans together. So let's just touch base on that. Looking at your perfect franchisee, your avatar we've been referring to, we're talking about their balance when it comes to the disc profile. The best way to learn that is look at your staff, your team at the moment, and say, who's the ideal person I think will be a great franchisee, and get them to complete the disc profile. Because then you're starting to get a bit of a feel for it. Get a few people. It's worth, some of my clients go through everybody in the office, and it's amazing when it throws up, and you do find sometimes there's a square peg in a round hole, but it explains why this particular role needs that sort of person. So this is the sort of information that if you're applying for a job through most recruitment businesses, you'll spend a lot of time going through these various tests. What we're pointing you to is a very simple one that I think is very applicable for anybody and everyone. But it really just answers a lot of questions in many respects and throws up a few other questions that you need to answer. So it's really worth going into. And then when you understand the sort of person you're looking for, understand the language they talk, I spoke to you about it with regards to customers, it's the way you communicate. What are they looking for? They're looking for cash flow, looking for security, looking for an investment opportunity. Why is it they're doing it? And that's what you're going to appeal to in your advertising. Remember the Panadol? Got a headache? We can fix it. You buy the headache tablets at the pharmacy or the supermarket. Bang, bang, bang. So it's problem, solution, access to the product. And then you're going to look at your target market for your particular business. Who are going to be your prospective franchisees? Depends on the nature of your industry, but it may be prospective franchisees, maybe franchisees in other groups or disillusioned. It may be that it's people who own a business that have just sold a business. A lot of people move into franchising who've been in business before, but realise it's damn hard and will love the thought of just getting on with what they love on the shop floor or wherever and let someone else take care of the marketing and the advertising and the accounts. And that's very common. So these can be great people to employ in a business and also to use to have as franchisees. It may be just the general business buyers. You know, there are people out there who've decided that they've hit 45 years of age or they've just been made redundant and they're fed up, as Nettie was, with the uncertainty. They want the security of running their own business. And they can see, because they know people maybe or see people who run their own business who are just like them, are doing really, really well. Who've got a beach house, who've got a nice car and a boat and go on holiday overseas every year. I'm no different to them. Or maybe the boss, and they say, I can do the job better than him. Why don't I get out there and get involved in business myself? So these sorts of people are ideal. Then your competitors, there may be people, maybe amongst reps, people who call in as the reps in your industry, may be good potentials. We recruited a a team member at the franchise branch in Perth who used to be the rep that came into Bedshed selling us bedding. We actually ended up selling him, we act as the agents, a bedshed. And then he sold that after about 3 years and came and worked for us as a broker. He was really good because he knew every side of the business. So you can get people at all these different stages. Don't just think there's one type of person. Surprising where they can come from. And of course, referrals. The golf club. It's amazing. The Chamber of Commerce. Once the word's out, it's surprising how people will come along to you. So you do have to have an element of being ready to handle that, which is where your USP and your elevator pitch is so important. And obviously, it's your emotion and your commitment and the pleasure you get from it is all transparent. So we look at your marketing plan. This is where you're going to do, basically plan it out. Where are you going to be? Where are you going to do your promotion? So it's a parallel exercise to the one we looked at when it comes to promoting your product. So it doesn't need to be huge in detail, but you need to look at it and say, well, I need to spend maybe 10% in recruiting each franchisee. So maybe you say, I'm happy to spend 5,000 or 10,000 or 1,000, whatever it is. A lot of people say, I'm going to do it all myself, therefore it's not going to cost me. But remember, it's going to cost you in time because you're losing productivity in another area. An analogy I always think about, for example, in a business is doing the bookkeeping. You do it yourself because you don't want to pay someone, but hey, what's your time worth an hour? I don't know anybody in business whose time is not worth at least $100 an hour. Productivity. And if you're doing a job that's worth $50 an hour, hey, you're only getting half the efficiency. So it's important to rationalise that, and it helps you make the decision because that's where growth is such a challenge. We sort of feel we're making a commitment by putting somebody else on or delegating or leveraging something or using an accountant to do something. But often it makes a lot of sense, Use resources, use people who are skillful. They'll do the job twice as quickly as you anyway. Therefore, it's probably only costing you, a quarter of the expense. That's what I found with my bookkeeping. Putting it through, so it's done on Xero by a couple of James's crew. I hear from them, a couple of times a month. They look after everything. They pay my wages. The cash book's all done. Blah 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 blah. So simple. Saves me that day and a half of depression I used to get every month when I was trying to do it all myself. So there you go.